Why, when you're at a bar, writing your business idea on a napkin, you're dreaming about taking over the world. But once you're in the thick of it, you're struggling to dream about getting through the week. What would you do if you had to start your business over from scratch tomorrow? You keep the experience, the lessons, scars probably, but the customer systems, reputation, and the routine is gone. In this episode, we're using that reset button scenario to separate what truly makes business work from what we simply keep doing because it's already there. We'll explore what we would rebuild immediately, what we would leave behind, and what we would do differently, knowing everything we know now.
Let me ask you, Roger, when you graduated college, what did you dream your career would be?
Oh, just nothing.
You weren't going to do anything.
I was hoping I'd win the lottery and I wouldn't need to do it.
That's such an Office Space response.
I know.
What would you do with $1 million? I'd do nothing. Hell, my cousin does nothing and he don't earn anything.
Yeah.
I knew I was just like, I'm going to find a way to make a lot of money, and I wasn't worried about it, and it was going to be easy.
But where were you going to be?
It didn't matter. I was just like, I will find my way. It's going to happen to me. But I didn't have like a plan.
But you didn't have a vision of, you went off to go surfing and stuff. Surely you thought, well, I'll be an ace rock star surfer.
Well, yeah, there's a part time where I wanted to be a pro surfer.
Yeah.
For sure.
The audience at home could not see the air quotes.
Well, that dream died when I was about 38.
Yeah.
Right?
I'll say that I wanted to do something involving comedy, and in my mind, I would think, oh, it'd be cool to be a famous comedy celebrity. But I think that college kind of smacked that out of me, especially in 2008. There was the housing crash, and there were no jobs. And, I had just finished getting a degree that I didn't even really want. And there were no jobs to be had even in that degree. So my perception of what was possible in the world, I was also clinically depressed, but my perception of what was possible in the world was very small. So I was like, I knew what I liked, but I didn't have a vision of who is the person that I want to be doing that.
We may have to go back and revisit our premise for this episode. I've tried a lot of different businesses. I tried startup. I've done many startups and worked for major corporations. Every single one of my initiatives started at cocktails, sometimes with a friend, maybe just me, I don't know, and a napkin. We called it an INA, an inane napkin analysis. And I would chart out, well, this is what my flight school is going to be like. And I'm going to have 17 franchises and they're going to be all over the Southwest. And we're going to own 75 Cessnas and blah, blah, blah. And then I'd start that process. And and especially when I got my teeth into something, I worked hard and I worked after it. But very soon it became, oh my God, there's no way I can buy 6 more Cessnas. I can't do that. And part of it was just me thinking it was really, I think, more wavering in my confidence than it was whether I could do that. Whether my business plan was good or not is a whole nother story. But history favors the bold. And once I got into it, I didn't have I always had the courage to start something and so forth. But as soon as it became real and it was real money and I was like, okay, well, I may have to mortgage my house. That's when I got stuck and I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Well, I will clarify. And I have talked about premium sport surplus on this podcast.
Premium sport surplus?
Premium sport surplus.
Okay.
Enlighten us again.
I worked at a storage facility, and one of the athletic director for the school district, anytime he got promotional shoes, he'd shove them in a thing. So there was this massive unit that was filled with cleats and athletic shoes that were like size 13. And so I kind of supported myself through college by filling my campus apartment with these shoes and selling them on eBay. And that was my first foray into saying, oh, you know what? I'm selling more of these shoes by calling myself Premium Sport Surplus than Funky Rabbit 55. And I was like, oh, if I brand myself as this, and it was a thing where I got into a groove of figuring out, okay, I need to list this many shoes on this day. And if I do that, then that means on this day, I'll be able to go to the post office and wrap them up and take it. And I was actually, I got these things for free.
So did you, in this process, did you think, hey, there's a model here that scales to where I am the eBay of, the reseller
Massive, yeah.
of these kinds of things and this excess stuff? And did you have dreams of that?
I would say I'm doing it and I see that there is profit in it. And in my mind, I said, well, if I was able to do this, if I scaled this up, then I would make this much. And it looked like so much work that I just didn't do it.
Yeah.
So that was the thing. That was my first.
You had the path, you just weren't willing to tread it.
Exactly.
You took the path less traveled.
Yeah, in my mind, I said,
more traveled.
Yeah, the most traveled path. I said, this is what it would take to make this many thousands of dollars doing this, and I'll pass.
All right. James,
Well,
when you did Click and Crate, what did you dream Click and Crate would be when you first started? And I know you started before Click and Crate.
Right.
So in that process, before you even got Click and Crate, what did you think you were going to be?
Well, I admire you for thinking big, right? Because I started my entrepreneurship journey because I had a passion for surfing. And my goal was I wanted a job and a career that would allow me to surf.
Yeah.
So it wasn't thinking big. I did it because I can't have a normal job and surf, right? I've got to be able to go when the waves are good.
Right.
And so that's how it started for me.
Of course.
But I do wish I could, if I did it all over again, right? I would definitely think bigger. There's a few lessons I learned. I would take my prices and quadruple them. I would be picky with my customer base to an extent, right? I wouldn't just take anything, the first thing that came.
But those are kind of, so that it's a little different because what I think you're saying is if I were to go back with the knowledge that I have, I would not make the mistakes that I made before.
Sure.
And do things differently because I know those don't work. And what I'm trying to focus on or I'm interested in is if this experience relates to people. Because I will tell you, I've done some work with this nonprofit called the Immunization Partnership. And I was talking to the director, and one of the things we talked about is what are her goals coming up for the next year. And she outlined them and very strong goals, good accomplishment. They had perfect, God, what do you do when you have goals and they have to be obtainable and timely? Smart goals, right? There's that word. So smart. So she had smart goals, all fine. And I said, if it were 3 years ago and you had the funding that you have now, but you don't have anything else, you don't have the employees that you don't have the technology stack for your website, but you have that money, and we were in a bar having drinks, would your goals look similar in terms of your total accomplishments for next year? Or would you be thinking, hey, let's really plan how we're going to get to 37 states and be the predominant provider of immunization information for professionals? And she was like, yeah, if we were in a bar, I had the money, but I didn't have any of these other things in place, I would be dreaming big. And I was like, so why aren't you dreaming big now? You're actually ahead of the game.
Right.
So that's what I'm curious. Maybe it doesn't resonate.
I think it resonates with me now. At that time, it wasn't there in my mind.
You weren't thinking as big back then.
And I don't know if it was a confidence deal or if I just, didn't believe that it could happen. But now I look back and I'm like, if you ask me that now, yeah, my goals would be sky high, right?
So I want to point something out, and this might be cultural, but Are you familiar with the concept of?
I hate to tell you, Roger, we all have the same culture.
Well, we'll see. You're familiar with the idea of selling out, that concept
I have never been offered that, but I would love to do
of
it.
selling out.
Sure.
When I was young, that was a big thing where people would say, well, I don't want to sell out. I
Yeah.
want to hold on to my convictions. I think it's amusing that I think we have moved away from that as a culture to a point where now if you listen to like some podcasts, not our podcast, but if you listen to some podcasts, they just straight up do ads in the middle of the podcast for anything.
Yeah.
Because
For DraftKings.
Yeah.
That's, when you're selling out, you're doing.
Yeah, when you're doing DraftKings, when you're getting that initial bet for extra money that is available on Tuesdays and on Wednesday nights, no, we do not have a deal with
We don't have that.
DraftKings.
But yeah, and and that's the thing. We're open to sponsors because the landscape of media, the landscape of business has changed. So I think there was an element of when I was young saying I need to stay true to myself. Now that I'm older, I very much think, how can I apply my special brand of doing things to money?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I would agree with the selling out. That was a big, especially being a surfer, right? It was all about, I'm a surfer.
The wave.
Yeah, like that's
Oh,
what
the
drove
wave.
me. I'm not trying to be
Money.
a Fortune 500,
Right.
Never.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I also think, so there is a bit of culture difference by age. And I was talking to a candidate who had gone to, I think, Yale and then Harvard Business School. And, no, he went to Princeton and then Yale. Princeton and then Harvard. It's important in a second. And I was talking to him, and I have a family member who went to Princeton and then Harvard. And I said, I was talking to the guy, and he graduated right around 2008 from Harvard. And I said, oh, and I was just kidding around. I said, so did when you went from Princeton to Harvard, did they kind of rib you about your experience? And did they make, because, Harvard's dictionary defines anticlimax as the Princeton motto. I think it actually is the Yale motto, and the Yale motto is to God, to country, to Yale. And so big little inside joke, right?
Yeah.
But he said, yeah, I maybe that was something that older people knew about, was the models. When we graduated in 2008, we didn't have jobs. We just weren't really concerned about that sort of thing. It's like, dude.
Yeah.
That's over, man. That was a while ago. You haven't recovered?
My dad loves the Beach Boys, and he would always be like, you got to rep your high school, man. And I just don't care about that.
Yeah.
It's so funny how we get economically kicked in the butt. So to your point about the businesses, I'm going to clarify. I have since started a business, and I'm going to focus on one aspect of it, and that is corporate training and engagement. So what we do is team building events for corporations, and it's ranged. We have it done it for nonprofits, for local businesses, for massive businesses, for C-level retreats, and
those are retreats that have a very low altitude. They're sea level. Okay, it's a weird niche.
SEA, sea-level retreats. It must be nice, but I'm happy with it. But what I missed out on that would have been better to start with is repeat customers and scalability. When we started, it was a matter of, hey, let's get as many companies as we can to do this. So we would have a year and we'd say, oh, look at all these cool companies that asked to do this. And what we failed to do is create a model that somebody would want this product again or want an upgraded version of the product, because it's the same product. And it's kind of like if you sell, I mean, I'm not to recommend obsolescence to say if I sold you a dishwasher and it's going to last you the rest of your life, you never need to buy a dishwasher from me again. I don't mean that we need to make a dishwasher that breaks, but once you have a relationship with a customer and they choose you as the team building person and they say, oh, you know what? We need to do a team building thing this year. We had these people last year. It was great. Let me reach out to them and see if they have anything new. We didn't really bake that in initially. And I think if we had baked it in to say, hey, big company, we're your team building people, and we love to set something up every year, we would have the steady revenue versus the.
I'm hearing. Let me jump on something that you're saying, because I think it would really help explain to me one reason that people who are being otherwise successful have smaller dreams than before they were successful. And I might say that it's from expectations in their relationships. So let me explain what that is. So in your example there, I think what you're saying is our customers have come to expect a certain thing from us. For us to break out of that mold, to be more, to be we're not just team building. We have this whole progression that we can offer you, that there is more to what we do. It's not the same thing over and over. So you're not buying an additional dishwasher. We have ranges, we have ovens, we have sinks, we have all these other things that we can help you with, metaphorically speaking. So you feel a little trapped or a little limited based on the perception that all your colleagues have, that your customers have, that in your dynamics. Would that be fair?
That's absolutely true. It was a perception of, well, we can do this one time, and that's the product. It didn't even register that.
Anybody, them, you, anyone.
Well, you bring up a good point. And is it the people around you that help shape your goals and your dreams, right? The influences that you are holding at the time. Because why are some people thinking so big where other people are like, hey, I just want to survive?
There is a song that I've just discovered called The Struggle by Scoobius Pip.
Okay.
I love that name. It's an awesome name. In the song, he talks about how dreams are your ceiling. So if you don't have a bigger dream, you get limited by it.
Right.
And your expectation around you. So, I'm really, this actually, I think I've had a little epiphany here. It's not so much about, it can vary about that whole idea of, I'm a big dreamer, but now that things have gotten real, I've brought those in, or it's become too much work, or whatever that is. It's really more about wherever I am today, my dreaming can be limited by my people around me, by the expectations that I have, that they have. And that really ends up becoming the difference between people that are continuing to dream big and people that are not, or that are dreaming more evolutionary than revolutionary, is because they just feel like this is where I am and they don't know how to break that mold.
Sometimes you need to cut people out of your professional life. And it's hard to, like, your first girlfriend or your first, you are like, well, no, we are together. And so your first breakup's hard because you have never experienced that before. And then you get to a point where you can let your relationships go and say, you know what, this worked really well for a while, but it's time to go. I don't hate the person. We might even get back together again. Who knows?
Sure.
I'm going to throw a little piece onto that, if that's okay. I would say the way to do that is try to start acting in the relationship you want with the person you're with. And the ideal scenario is that person responds well and you guys move on together.
And at the very least, if they don't,
And then if you don't, So I have a metaphor for relationships. It's kind of a joke, but kind of true, I think. I think relationships can either be like corn or wisteria. Corn are straight stalks. They grow straight up. You might be really lucky and with if you and your partner are corn and you both grow exactly in the same direction at the same time at the same rate. And that can be a super strong. We know couples like this, power couples that are like this, and they had a goal back when they got together in college, have had it their entire career, are doing phenomenally well. And it's mostly because they had a plan, they stayed on the plan, and they just went straight for it. I think my wife and I have a more wisteria. So wisteria is the vine that you see growing around, and as it grows, it just goes, think parts of it just sprout out and go in random directions. But what can happen when you have a bunch of wisteria together is two of those offshoots can end up wrapping around each other. And you don't have any idea which direction they're going in, but they kind of, one pulls off towards this sunlight and it kind of pulls the other one, and then it starts wrapping around and kind of pulls it in a different direction, back and forth. And if you have that kind of relationship, it's that, hey, we're going to try going in this direction. Oh, yeah, that's working. And hopefully that person stays with me. But if they're a corn, you can't do that.
And there's regrets to both. Sometimes if you're wisteria, you're like, boy, I wish that I had a goal, a better goal. But sometimes when you're a corn, you're like, you know what? I missed opportunities that would have made me a lot happier. And so it's you still have to self-reflect, and it is okay to change, to say, you know what? This has been very wisteria-like. We need to be corn.
Do you think that the majority of people that end up creating something big, revolutionary, are corn people? Or do you think there are some wisteria people in there?
Oh, there's definitely wisteria people. Oh, for sure. You can't even mix them.
Sure.
You can have wisteria that's wrapping around corn, right? So somebody can have a very big career goal and both people really orient towards. I think political couples are a lot like that, where one person, in many ways, I think the Clintons and the Reagans and really the Bushes had that relationship. One person was on a straight trajectory and the spouse, mostly the wife in that case, was feeding into that as well. And they were, whatever direction they needed to go, they went with it. Going back to business, which isn't nearly as interesting
as corn,
as corn, unless we were in Iowa, which might change everything. Going back to business, I think trying to break the expectations that your customers have of you is a really important thing to try, and raising that ceiling, that dream, pushing that dream past where you are to not just an evolutionary step, but something that's a bigger, is a really interesting dynamic to have for yourself, even if you can't reach that dream.
Closing thought for me, going back to surfing, I like deep down, I did want to be a pro surfer for a long time. And I was a good surfer, right? Like I grew up in Texas, so I already had limitations. But I remember maybe 5-8 years ago, they built a wave pool here in Texas, and pros from all over the world would come. And at the time, there was this one guy that he hung out with us the whole day because we rented it for, like, a couple groups rented it for the whole day. So he was in that group with us. And at the time, he was a top surfer in the world. And I was hanging out with him and surfing with him. And I was like, all of a sudden I realized, I could have done it, right? Because obviously I had to make some decisions and go for it, but this guy's not much different from me. You know what I'm saying? It kind of made it real. We're like, wow, like it seemed like, of course I want to be a pro surfer, but I can't really be one. But then I realized it kind of just said it where it's like, you could have done this if you really wanted it,
I'm going to say something else, James, about you, because a friend did this for me at one point, and I think it was really valuable. Your experience that you did with surfing, how many people can say that they helped produce and starred in a surf movie? How many people can say that they moved to California and were on the circuit? How many people can say that a surf supply company, I don't know what you call them, commerce store, pick them as a sponsor? Those are amazing accomplishments, and it doesn't really matter if you became a pro surfer or not. Those are experiences that are so incredible. You should never dismiss the accomplishment that you did. And I think you should use that accomplishment not as a negative to say, oh, well, I could have been a pro surfer. I could have been that guy. And so therefore I never really fulfilled my dream. It's no, you did this amazing thing, accomplished that dream, continue to dream big.
Well, thank you. I yes, have gratitude towards it, right? Like it shaped me for, and it was great time. I wouldn't go back and do it a different way.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious if you ever were in a bar and you had an idea for a custom surfboard, how you would scale it.
No, but there was a time when there was a whiteboard in the office and a lot of Jack Daniels being consumed.